Thank you for joining us. We're 5 minutes past the hour, so definitely a good starting point. Give everybody a good opportunity to get here. Definitely want to thank everybody. My name is Brooke Schaefer from ExPrep. Obviously, you guys didn't come here to meet with me. You came here for our host, Erik Ford. Erik has some great stuff to share with everybody today. My goal here is really just to get things kicked off and then let Erik take over. He's definitely going to be the host and the person who does the majority of everything today. I just want to give everybody kind of a quick rundown of how we're going to handle things today. Basically, we're going to do 3 different segments of the webinar. The first one is going to be all about Erik. He's going to give you guys some good information introducing himself, talking to you about the class, definitely talking about different ways that he's utilizing Excel in his classroom, along with how he's utilizing ExPrep along with it. The second thing that he'll be doing is giving you guys a really good student demonstration from the student experience side of it. He's going to go all the way from how he sets his course up in Canvas, all the way through how he uses ExPrep and into the feedback and the grading mechanisms that he's using inside of his course. And then the third step will be to do some Q&A. We definitely want to be able to open things up at the end for people that have specific questions. I do have a team of people who will be able to answer some questions as we go, but we will definitely be fielding some questions at the end. So if you do have some things, definitely use the chat box. We'll be monitoring that. If you haven't noticed that this session is being recorded, definitely wanted to let everybody know that this was being recorded, so everybody would be aware of that. And then the last thing that I have before I'm going to turn things over to Erik is during this webinar, you will receive an email from one of my teammates here at ExPrep, obviously to discuss the free demo of some of your content that we offered. I know Erik's going to talk some on that of like how he got involved with ExPrep, but that's the typical way that we start working with a professor, is for you folks to see a piece of your content running through our automation. But like I said, I know Erik's going to talk a lot about that today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you, Erik, and I'm going to let you go ahead and tell these folks a little bit more about yourself and how you're running your class and what you got going on. So thanks a lot for helping us out here today, Erik, and the floor is yours.
My name is Erik Ford, and I teach at the Lundquist College of Business at the University of Oregon. That's that really cool building behind me right there. I teach the spreadsheet analysis and data visualization course there, which is pre-business required for all of our students. And so I teach 2 sections of that class. It's large enrollment, and so those sections are 220 students each. And I have a face-to-face section and an online section, and those courses are almost exactly similar, except for the online delivery of the content. And so then that's in a large lecture hall with 220 students sitting there. And then we also have a discussion section, which is a computer lab session that students show up to in 55-person sections on Thursday or Friday that we use as a weekly exam on the course's material. And so that's kind of how the course flows. We learn stuff throughout the week, we practice it in homework projects, and then we take an exam at the end of the week on that course material before we move on to the next week. I have a GE, a graduate employee, that runs that lab. And then I have a small group, about 4 to 5 student undergraduate TAs that work for that GE that do all sorts of stuff in those computer labs. They're a big help. And this course is just super popular. So the Lundquist College of Business started doing kind of like a student choice award last year. And this course won that award. Just a lot of graduating seniors say that this spreadsheet analysis course was the favorite course that they took over their time in college here at the University of Oregon, which says a lot, because the course wasn't like that for a long time. It wasn't very popular for a long time, and so things have gotten a lot better. And so just a little bit about my teaching philosophy and what I think has made this course quite good. I want students to be engaged. And so, how do we get there to student engagement? I think a lot of that has to do with students seeing the value in what they're learning. And then my responsibility in that is showing up and being really engaging and being enthusiastic about the material. And that's easy for me to do when I believe that this is integral to student success, right? And so it's really easy for me to bring a lot of enthusiasm to the classroom, because I believe it, then they're believing it, and it just works really well like that. And then another piece of that is me providing the best possible design and flow of the class, and a lot of that has to do with the technology, and that's where ExPrep has really added so much to this course. And so I'll take a step back and I'll let you know how we got here to ExPrep. So because I'm obsessed with providing the best technology for the students, I take every meeting. Right? And so when I get an email from a salesperson, like I set up a meeting and we talk, and I look at their tech. And even when it's the same salesperson coming back year after year, I take that meeting because I want to know what's out there. And so I've seen a lot of what was available. When I first got involved with this course about 10 years ago, it was at that point students just submitting files, and they were it was really low tech. They were graded in batch files with a lot of if statements, and so that worked. Well, it was pretty archaic, really. It worked, but if a student had a response that was just one cell out of whack, then the grading went crazy, and it was just incredibly limited. And so then a salesperson pitched to us about 9 years ago, McGraw-Hill Simnet, and they pitched it as this great solution. And so my mentor, Dave, who ran the course back then, he said, okay, we'll try that. And it was a complete disaster. And so what ended up happening is it just didn't grade properly. And so, with a large enrollment course with 440 students actively doing assignments, and being graded, getting 75% on an assignment that they think they did correctly, it just became a management nightmare. Hundreds of emails per day on these things. People wanting to know what they were getting wrong, why they were getting it wrong, and we had no ability to react to that and to fix that because the Simnet tech was so inflexible. We couldn't change the instructions that the students were interacting with. We couldn't change the way that the assignments were grading. And so all we could do was just write students back and be like, I'll fix your grade, right? So we're doing that hundreds of times a day, going in and trying to edit these grades. And so the course was on the verge of collapse. And so as an emergency response, we changed the class from graded to pass, no pass, just so that we could quiet the students down on this uprising that we had going on around grading. And so then I immediately started looking for other tech. And so I met with a sales rep from Pearson with their Myitlab product. And I saw lots of flaws with it, but they did have the flexibility of where I could edit instructions. And then at that time, they had this really primitive version of what they called their project creation tool, so that on the back end, I could go in and edit their existing assignments to an extent, and I could create my own stuff to an extent within the parameters of their system. And so I made an immediate pivot to that. Dave retired. I took over the course, and that was about 6-7 years ago. And so with that limited amount of flexibility in there, I was able to fix the course. We had decent content, and it graded okay. But the Myitlab platform was just this really old, cobbled together thing. It was just painfully obvious to anybody that gave it a good look that this thing had been built over legacy editions of just stuff, and there was just 10 layers of software on top of one another, and it was just an incredibly glitchy program that students just described as a broken website. And so it was just a point of constant frustration. And I would start each term, as I introduced this Myitlab platform that we're going to use, I would start it by apologizing for the software, apologizing to the students, telling them that I had surveyed everything out there, and this was the best technology that I could provide for them in this class. And it was just it was subpar for the course that I wanted to have, but it was the best that was out there. So a lot of my time was just spent trying to make up for the inadequacies of the Myitlab platform. A lot of my time was spent trying to educate students just on how to navigate this broken website, and then much of our energies in the lab experience, where students would go take their exams. A lot of those energies were centered around us just navigating Myitlab problems in what is a very stressful environment of a timed exam each week, where students only have 45 minutes to execute on this thing, and the website won't work. And so that was a lot of our energy spent then. And so then it was 2 years ago that I took a meeting with Brandon at ExPrep, and things changed. And so and that's what we've gotten to today. And I mean, And so, I mean, I'll just fast forward over this because we can talk a lot about this in the Q&A and as we wrap this up. But ExPrep has been completely transformative in the course because that jump that I went from Simnet to Myitlab, where there was flexibility in what I could do, that has been tenfold with ExPrep. I am really free to create absolutely anything that I want to in ExPrep, and I've hit very few limitations on that. And so I've been able to reimagine this course and make it what I have always wanted it to be, and gotten it to a really neat place now. And so I'll switch over to screen sharing now, so you can see what I'm talking about what I've been able to build with ExPrep. And yeah, so I'll do that. I'll share my screen here.
Yeah, Eric, while you're doing that, can I interrupt you real quick?
Hey, you betcha.
Yeah, well, one of the things I mentioned this right before we kind of went live with everybody. Like, so for everybody that's listening, like, that was the first time I've heard your story, right? Like, you and I just met. Like, this is the first event you and I have ever done together. I really don't work a lot with you in the University of Oregon. Somebody else, like you said, Brandon, handles a lot of the stuff there at Oregon. So, I'm just now meeting you, and that was my first time hearing that story. So I want to thank you for sharing. I'm sure a lot of people saw reactions on my face. Obviously talking about some of the other tech out there that we compete with and that we see every day. So it was great to hear that story. So I really appreciate it. I got a couple chuckles out of you. And so that was really good. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm also going to throw in here, because I know Erik's not going to brag on himself. Like, when you move over to this and you get into Canvas, like, you have this really well laid out and really organized. Like, when you showed this to me the other day for the first time, like, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, wow, like, you have this really laid out well. So I think this next piece is going to be the biggest thing for people to really see how you've taken your thoughts and put them down in here into Canvas and laid this out. And then obviously how you're using ExPrep to support what you're doing. But I'm done. I don't want to keep talking. I'm going to let these guys listen to you.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate the observation. As I said, this is an award-winning course. It won this kind of People's Choice Award within the Locust College of Business. This course also won the school-wide large award for online education. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with this is the third iteration of this course that I built, and you learn along the way. But I was always held back by the limits of the technology that I was working with, and so this third iteration has really allowed me to dream big, and I appreciate the feedback. So I will share my screen so that you can see what we're doing here. And so this is my Canvas course, and of course, you could use ExPrep on any LMS. Heck, I could use, I could make a really decent version of this just on the web. But it's really nice to have an LMS, of course. And Canvas is a good one. It allows for a lot of flexibility. So here's the landing page for the course. This is the online course, but both my face-to-face and online course look strikingly similar. The structure is the same. The difference being is that this in-class demo here for the online students is a video series of me doing a screen share, whereas students in class would be doing this live on their laptops with me. And so a typical class is like this, where I'm teaching students about using references and also an introduction to the if function. They download a file here, they build it with me over a series of videos here, and then they upload it here to Canvas. And I have it set up in a certain way so that this automatically generates a grade in there, so that I don't have to manually grade these. I'm really big on automated systems. That's how I manage the activities of 440 students with a lot of automated systems. And so that's it for there. That's what the in-class experience is like for a student. So I just taught them about using dollar signs and relative and absolute references, mixed references, and the if function. And they just learned that with me in Monday's class of week 2, which I call 2A. That's just my numbering system. And so they learned that with me in class, and then they go and they now do a homework project over here. And this is ExPrep. And so all homework is ExPrep. And so I've named this project Formulas, Instructions, and Files. And the flexibility comes right down to me being able to actually name things descriptively, right? I'm not plugging and playing things from a textbook anymore. This is just, I've been able to reimagine this from the ground up. And so so what do I teach in week 2? I teach formulas and I teach functions. So I've named these classes formulas and functions. I've named the projects formulas and functions. I've named the exams formula and functions. And so everything just flows so well now. And so when students come and they need to do this, they go ahead and they click on to this assignment, and I always provide them with written instructions, which they can look at there, or I always encourage them to download them so they have written instructions there. And then I always provide them pictures also of what it is they're trying to build. And that eliminates a lot of confusion, so they can just look at that and see what exactly it is they're trying to build. So those are hosted on Canvas, but then when they come over and they come in here and they're ready to actually start the assignment, they click here, Project Formulas, and that will launch them straight over to ExPrep. This has full Canvas integration, and so I have a Start Here module to the course. So they come in and they watch videos, and this orients them to the course. But then they're forced to come down and click on this here, this ExPrep sign up. And what that does is that links their account from Canvas over to ExPrep. It's just a quick sign on, and then they're done. And that just activates everything, and all of the links to ExPrep now work. And so that's just really clean. I'm not dealing with that anymore about confused students about how to get to things or where to find them. It's just all right here. And so when they click on that Project Formulas, that'll launch them over into ExPrep. They'll see just that assignment, they click on it, it downloads, and they can begin to follow the instructions and files. And so that's the experience, right? I teach them relative references and if function in this class 2A. And then the homework, instead of this being a square peg in a round hole, which is what I had before, I had, like with my Myitlab, I had these projects that they had built the way that they thought Excel should be taught, and that I often really disagreed with. And I had to build my teaching to the textbook, because I couldn't teach students one way and then have the homework teach them another way and be a very confusing experience like that. So I had to dumb down my teaching of Excel to what was there in the textbook. And that was a really frustrating thing for me, but that was the compromise I had to make a course that made sense for students. I don't have to do that anymore. If we were to jump into this homework project, what we would see is that it is just exactly an extension of this in-class experience, and they're just doing those things on their own. And it's very clean, and it's very intuitive for students, and it's just a really good experience for them. And so then on Thursday's class, boom, we jump into it again. In this demonstration here, I'll teach them lookup functions, the periodic payment function, PMT, and a couple of other things. They'll hop into the functions assignment. Again, that's a homework project that just makes complete sense, because it just scaffolds right off what we learned there. And then we'll hop into the exam, which of course is called Exam 2, Formulas and Functions. And this is just an exam that is an easier version of everything that we've learned in the demonstrations and what we've practiced in the homework projects. And it even looks the same. The instructions read the same. It grades the same. And so, I was able to, with ExPrep, just reimagine what week 2 should be like for my students. And then I built it from the ground up. There were just no limitations at all on what I wanted to do here. And and so it's just a nice, really clean course for students. They figure out what this pattern is like in week 2, and then we just repeat it in week 3 and week 4, and the class just repeats like that. And it's just really clean and easy for students. If there's no questions about that, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions come in here that I thought maybe we would cover. Just real fast. When someone had asked if obviously you're using Canvas, would this work with Blackboard? The answer would be yes. Whatever your LMS is, just let us know, and we can set up the same type of integration that Erik is demonstrating here. And then I also had someone who was asking more of a specific question to you. Since we're talking about your content, I really wanted to bring it up now, which was just asking, one, does Erik create his own assignments, or is he creating his own, or is he creating his own, or is he creating his own assignments, I guess? And then the other question would be, if he's creating his own assignments, how does he auto generate a grade? Which obviously caught my eye when that came up, because that's kind of the world that ExPrep plays in. So you might want to, if you cover that real quick as you're talking about your course here, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show you a demonstration right now of the student experience of submitting things, and you'll see the grade automated. And so there is just, that's what ExPrep does, right? That is the main thing that ExPrep does. I want to create an assignment, and so I want to reimagine what the first project's going to be like. And so what do? I noodle on it for a week. I come up with what the new project one is going to be, project formatting, and I build what I think would be a good starting file for a student and what the ending file would be. Kind of write up, this would be the instructions, and then I send them over to Brandon at ExPrep, and within a couple days he sends it back to me and says it's active in your course, and that's it. And then students click on it and they go through the process I'm about to show you, and it grades perfectly. Or if it doesn't grade perfectly, I look at it and I shoot some pictures back over to Brandon and I say, hey, students are getting 95 on this. I think this is the problem. And he goes, yeah, that's the problem. It's fixed. It's just that clean. And this is the experience of working with a small company, in my opinion. I had the same kind of experience in my large enrollment introduction to business course, the other course that I teach. We worked with Capsum and some other big companies for a long time, and they were just completely inflexible. We had to dumb down our course to meet the inadequacies of the tech we were working with. And then we found a small company that does a business simulation and started working with them, and it just transformed our experience. The small companies are just willing to work with you, and have the resources to put toward working with you and solving your problems. It's just a completely different experience than working with a huge inflexible company that's trying to do way too many things. And so that's just been my experience. And so, yeah, I'll show you what that looks like for a student. The very first ExPrep assignment that students will run into, I teach them about formatting in the very first class. They click down here to do the formatting assignment. And so they click right there. That takes them over to the ExPrep here. All they would see would be project formatting right here, and they would click on that and it would download. And what they would see is they would see a file that looks like this. And so this is my start file for this. And then they would look at the instructions and these solution images posted on Canvas. Hopefully they download that. They follow the instructions and they fill this thing out. And then following the instructions and looking at the solution images, they come up with something that looks like this. And so they're really happy with this, and they're going to submit this to ExPrep. And so they just go ahead and save that on their computer, and then they head back over to ExPrep here, and they click on the button again, and they click submit, and then they upload it. And so when they upload that, it immediately grades, and you can probably see down here that it's blocked by my thing, but if you look down here, you should see that I got 82% on that, right? So when they submit that, they immediately see that, and they see that they got 82%. And well, they want to know why, right? And so with the old Myitlab, what this would turn into is an email. It would be, hey, I got 82%. I did everything correctly. What's going on? I'm super mad. This is the 5th time this happened, and they just, and so I dealt with a lot of that stuff. But with ExPrep, it's just this clean. What they do is they click download my submission, and it comes back with feedback built in. So they'll see this on their 82% submission. They'll see this, and so the red indicates that there's some problem there, right? And so if they go and they compare this to the solution image, the first thing they'll see is that this should have been a sequence of numbers 1 through 8 there, right? And then they can just look over here, and they can just go ahead and double click into this edit mode. And well, we can see that, that the purple box is in the wrong spot, or they can also just head over to the score report here, where it shows exactly where the problem is. And even the feedback is customized. This is feedback that Brandon and I wrote for the students, and we've edited a little bit along the way as we've gotten feedback from students. They said, I don't quite understand the feedback that you gave me on project 1 for cell A12, H12. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's change that so that it becomes more descriptive. And so students get exact feedback here. And then what they can do is they can just come through here and they can make the corrections right in the Excel file. And so they just come through here and they fix this sequence here. They fix that sequence there. They come over here and they go ahead and they fix this one here and copy that down. And then that's fixed, right? And then there was another one, like there was a note that this wasn't actually centered. Oh, look at this. This was supposed to be a merged cell up here, right? And so that snuck by them. So they can just get up into there and they can merge that, and then they just go ahead and resubmit this right here. They rename the file, they resubmit, they get that 100%, and that's it. They're good to go. It works like this. It works like this on projects. Exams work in exactly the same way. And so I used to spend about 25 minutes on Monday of week 2. And so I just did that because I'm on a quarter system. And so Monday of week 2 is where students have submitted their first assignment from the week before. With my IT lab, I spent about the first 25 minutes of Monday's class, and I would apologize for my IT lab. I would talk about grading problems. I would talk about grading frustration. I would talk about how to look at feedback and try to get the best score possible. I had these other mechanisms where students could record missed points and log those throughout the term on the Canvas site. And I would talk about, not emailing me about these small things that we would address them later. I would spend 25 minutes going over this to try to reduce student frustration around grading. I covered this demonstration that I just showed you in 4 minutes on Monday. And I looked at a class of 220 students and I said, are there any questions about this? There wasn't a single question in the room. And that has freed up my time just exponentially. And so I was able to teach 6 more examples of the if function on Monday because I'm not dealing with all of these grading problems. It's just fixed. And that experience, so I used ExPrep for a full year last year, but that was in the middle of the pandemic, and so we were online. Fall was the first chance I had to do this face-to-face. Last term, I brought in a new instructor that I want to help start teaching Excel. So I had her do the class last term. So then this now is my second time back face-to-face doing this. And I'm just now really starting to process just how much better the course is for me and for the students. My shock at covering this in 4 minutes on Monday. Also, week 2, what I'm in right now, has historically been, when I tell other instructors about this course, and they're like, oh, that sounds crazy. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea, right? Week 2 is me just doing tech support all day long on Zoom and just helping students figure things out. I'm in week 2 right now, and it's crickets over here. I'm just, I'm meeting with 3 or 4 students a day to talk about Excel stuff. I'm hopping on Zooms to teach them Excel, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't realize that most of the tech support that I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years actually has to do with more of the homework platform problems. And so I'm not doing that anymore. And then, so I've got all this time on my hands, and then actually what I'm using it for is I'm working on improving the graduate version of this course right now and shooting new videos, a project I've been trying to get around to for a year. Another place that I really see the change is in our lab, right? Our exam thing that we do at the end of the week. So that has always been the 6 people in there have always just been doing my IT lab problems with the exams and stuff. And so we're not doing that anymore. And what we've been able to do now is students are now able to use other testing centers on campus because we don't have to be there to fix problems for them. So like for students that have accessible education, they're now using the testing center they're supposed to. We're actually running remote Zoom exams now too, to allow students that are not on campus to be able to do that. Because again, they don't need us there fixing problems. And so ExPrep has just really transformed the course from the point of me being able to create content so everything is perfectly aligned to having superior content to having all of this time freed up. And then lastly, just student outcomes. I'm still trying to dissect this and figure out what's going on, but about 10% of the class used to fail this course, and it's down to 2% now. And it happened right at ExPrep.
I mean, I would add to that, because I mean, obviously I'm on the phone with professors like you every day. And I think one of the things where you see that tick up in grades may not be true for your class, but definitely hear it from other professors, is the fact that when you're using something like ExPrep, that we literally can grade so much that those partial credits that weren't giving before are now being given. Like I always tell the story. I have a professor, when I met her, she was spot grading. I think I told you about this, spot grading 12 items on this huge assignment. Now we're grading over 1,200 individual cells and different things within that. And the students are being looked at from so many different directions that they're getting all these partial credits instead of having her just have to figure out like, what is the grade based on how they got these 12 major questions right. She's able to see all the little things that they're doing correct along the way and give points for those that she wasn't able to do before. So in my belief, just telling stories from other professors, I really think the fact that, like you said, when you speed up the grading and you're doing that much grading in 10 seconds or less, it really allows the professor to doing things like you've done to get way more involved in how these things are being graded and looked at and the feedback mechanisms back to them. And you're able to create grading situations like when you worked with Brandon to make sure that everything that you wanted looked at is being looked at and that the rubric that you've created is being allocated and scored properly. I mean, it's so huge to students to be able to get all those partial points and not just be graded on the 5 big questions that are asked at the end. Like there allows a lot more going on in those assignments and exams along the way than those 5 big questions at the end. So hopefully that's something we've done for you to, being able to grade everything instead of just grading one thing on every assignment, really opens up for those students to get better grades. But either way, if you're telling me before me, they were lower grades, with me, they're higher grades, that's putting a smile on my face. I love hearing that what we're doing is getting better grades and giving a better experience to the student. So thanks for sharing that. That was awesome. I love hearing about it. I did have some other things that I wanted to add in. I know that you teach, more of a class that's based around the learnings of Excel. There's going to be other professors that are on this call that are financial modeling professors, accounting professors that aren't just teaching Excel based stuff. So just so all of you guys know, and Eric, and you can put your 2 cents in on this if you would, is we don't care at ExPrep what you're grading. If you're working on a huge financial model, or if you're teaching, relative referencing that Erik's talked about here in week 2 at Oregon, I don't really care what it is, or ExPrep doesn't care what it is. If you are using Excel as a tool in your class, using it for assignments, or would like to be doing so, if you're doing it in Excel and you can show it to me, we can figure out a way to grade it to your liking. And as Erik has said very well, I don't care what it is. We are flexible enough to create it and to grade it the way you want it, no matter what type of assignment it is. So
yeah, I will agree with that. One of the limitations that all the other systems that I've looked at have is, like a maximum amount of data. It's pretty limited. I really wanted students to work in realistically sized data sets. I wanted students to have to navigate 20,000 records and to manipulate data in those kinds of things. But the problem with that is that if students are manipulating things kind of free form in that amount of data, their results may vary. And so, I had to ask Brandon, how can we grade something where students are going to have, really different results through there? And so he just got creative. It's like, okay, well, what should I look for in this entire sheet, right? We just want to make sure that they have a certain value somewhere in there. And so he just got creative about it, and we came up with ways that students could freeform do stuff and do it in large data sets, and it worked. So pretty impressive.
Well, you were talking about a handoff to another professor. I see that all the time. How, and this has nothing to do with ExPrep. I think it's more to do with your organization. Like when you're handing over that class to another professor, how easy was that with everything that you have set up? Obviously in Canvas, you have everything very well laid out. You have all the content, already automated through ExPrep. When you hand that off to another professor, I assume that that's a pretty easy handoff for that professor to be able to take what you've created and start to teach that course. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, it was incredibly easy because everything is just automated and works. And it's just, so it required, the ExPrep portion of the course required no explanation at all, which again is a huge, I'm not too sure I could have handed this course off to someone with any of those previous homework platforms. There would have just been too much hand-holding about, the FAQ I would have had to provide that professor would have been huge. Right. To be able to answer student problems. So yeah.
But the way you have things laid out, I would think that that's a pretty nice transition. And then obviously with us on the back end, handling all the grading, the feedback and stuff that you've already set up with us. Like I'd love to, being a professor, that's a nice course to take over, right? I mean, everything's kind of already laid out and to go. So no, like I said, that was a scary question, but I had to know the answer. I'm too curious. So I know we're looking for, to get into a Q&A here.
Somebody asked about Max. Yeah. So
great question.
So 60% of my students are on Max, and that's always been a huge problem. And so it's not anymore. The course is completely Mac compatible. ExPrep is 100% Mac compatible. Yeah. As far as the ExPrep side of it goes, the course is completely 100% Mac compatible. We don't have any issues there.
There's a question there if any of your students are pursuing any kind of Microsoft certification, Excel certification.
No, I don't do it. I've flirted with using the Microsoft certification exams, like as a final exam and stuff, just so that students can have kind of like that. I'm just not really impressed with the MOS exams, and so I've stepped back from them. If they had more impressive exams, I would use them because they're in a simulated environment, which I hate. I want students to work live in the application, but I see the worth of it, and students would have the certification, which would be cool. I taught myself Excel on YouTube videos about 12 years ago, and it fundamentally transformed my life. And I want that same experience for my students. We have done industry surveys and stuff, and found that Excel is the #1 computer skill that businesses want from our students. And students know this, and if they don't, I explain it to them, and they believe it, and so they see the value in what they're learning, and so we just have a great time like that, and that's how we stay motivated.
I'm going to add to that. We stay motivated here at ExPrep because we know the time we're saving you and that feedback that we can get back to your students immediately, right? No way could you get to that without help. I'm not saying I need to be your help, but you need help. My wife's a school teacher as well, right? At a smaller level, but anything that helps to save those students' time, or professors or teachers' times and students' times, means there's more time to learn. There's more time for you to teach. So just to add into that, you had your motivations. Like that's what motivates ExPrep is we know there's professors out there that we can change their class for them. We can create the time that you've spoke about, and I get some chills thinking about it. So I really thank you. That's what motivates us. That's what makes me want to come in the next day, talk to other professors, continually reach out to professors to find, the people like you that need the help and want the help. And then obviously once we can deliver it to the students, it's phenomenal.
So I see a question over in chat saying, still not clear on how this works. So would students set up an ExPrep account? I would create instructions and assignment, put them in ExPrep. ExPrep would set up the automated grading. Is that correct? And yeah, another instructor in my department just started using ExPrep. And so the system for him was, he's like, how do I do this? And so I just introduced him to somebody at ExPrep, and they started working. He sent over the 3 big Excel assignments that they do, which, again, to your point, those are more free-form model building for an operations class. He sent those over with, the basic instructions that he gives students. And within a week, they were back to him built in his course as automated grading assignments. And so then he just went ahead and linked those over onto his Canvas modules page, and they're up and running. And so now students do those all through the links on Canvas, and they automatically grade and automatically appear in the gradebook as graded assignments.
Like we have professors that, after you're with us for a while, like you're not even going to need us. Like you'll be able to set up your own stuff. Right. I mean, you've taken a look at the setup of the grading enough that, if you had an assignment, I don't know how far you'd get into programming the grading, but you'd be able to get pretty well through it. Most professors that have been with us the time that you have would be able to. So that's the other thing too, is it's not always something where we have, like some of our professors never send us content. They know how to take the content. They know how to set up the grading. And once they have it all set up, and some of them will send stuff over to me to go, hey, did you get it right? Did I have it right? Can you check it, test it for me? But many of our professors are able to do it all on their own.
So there's a question in the chat asking about more freeform stuff where students are making statistical analysis, doing data tables or solver, and so how are you going to grade that, right? And that was always a problem with previous platforms. We couldn't. I mean, it was just you just couldn't do it. And so the way that ExPrep has built stuff for me now is they're able to say, is solver being used, right? So is there a solver here, right? And then is there an objective cell set correctly? Is the correct value somewhere on this page? And so they just have so much more flexibility. I know to your point, I don't build stuff myself. I just send it over to ExPrep. I want to focus on teaching my students, and so I don't deal with any ExPrep stuff at all. But That's how it's been explained to me, and they have done a fantastic job. There's nothing that I've tried to build that they haven't. I teach an entire class on what if analysis using Solver, data tables, goal-seek, and it all just works. I'll throw in that if anybody that's still in this webinar wants to meet and discuss this stuff more, I'm super available. Just Google me on Google me at the University of Oregon. You see my email there. Reach out to me. We can meet and talk about this or anything else you want to. I love meeting other instructors that teach Excel and want to build stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, at some point during this call, everybody on the call should have heard from us at ExPrep about, setting up a demo to take a look at their content, to kind of, to get those aha moments of, to ask those questions of like, what could you do with my content? How could you do this for us? That was something that I was going to bring up to make sure that everybody knows that, my name is Brooks. If you need me, I think Erica is the one that's been reaching out to everybody during this session. So reach out to her, reach out to us. Erik threw that in. I about was floored when you said that to me, Erik, that, hey, I'm happy to talk to any professors that are showing interest in ExPrep if they need to understand something from the perspective of a professor who understands the platform very well. That was huge. I don't get a lot of professors that offer that up. I'll be very interested to see who takes you up on that. Obviously, I thank you so much for your time today, Erik, and for offering to continue that time with more people.
Thanks for inviting me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I thank everybody again. If you guys want to reach out, please do. We'll let these folks get back to what they're doing and enjoy their weekend, and we'll let you do the same.